In today's video I'm going to be looking at this Ariston turntable record player. Got a bit of a circuit here for a Rotel. I had a quick look online just to familiarise myself with it. They use a Technics motor in them, and this has speed issues. It is a Technics MHX-5P2RVA, made on the 21st of July 76. It's a little 12 volt motor. There's a little board with a couple of trim pots on it and a bunch of capacitors and stuff over near the motor, and then we've got this sort of speed control board here with some pitch controls. And supposedly this has been to a couple other people and they didn't make it any better, although he told me who one of them was, and yeah, they were pretty useless company anyway. But this is a RD11 series Model E, so this has got the pitch control, the electronic motor control and stuff. But if he gave me a quick demo, and he's already lubed up the platter and things like that. But yeah, you set the speed and it locks in for a little bit and then it just completely goes off again. Loses the servo control in there somewhere, and this has got some, I think, some fancy aftermarket arm on it, so I better be careful with that. Have a bit of a quick look in here. But we've got obviously a transformer to drop the voltage down, which does some of that go straight in there? Probably not. We've got a bit of dust and stuff here in here that needs cleaning out. And we've got another board over here which has got a very corroded looking fuse on it, very corroded looking trim pot on it. We've got two sort of multi-turn pots there, much like the ones, probably are the ones that they use in televisions for tuning the channels. A couple of 15Ks by the look of it. And what is that thing there? Oh, that's the LEDs. The switch, another few switches they could probably do with a clean just for the hell of it. A couple of electrolytic capacitors there, sort of mounted weirdly off the side of that board. And there's a little chip, or is that a transistor there? One of them had a chip on it, must have been, oh yeah, the chip's on that board I think. That's got a transistor over here near the trim pot. What's that switch then? A bridge rectifier. That is manual auto switch, but whether that's got something to do with that. And you can set the voltage to 240 or 110 volts there. I did have to remove one nut to get that bit off the base, and you've got to be careful, the base is a bit sharp on the edges. I lost a little bit of skin in that. Someone's left a bit of solder sitting on there, which is never a good idea. And I think they put in some fancy new wiring. It looks like the standard stuff to me. And we've got this other board here, which I'll be interested to see if it is a chip. Is it the same one they're using in the Technics and Rotel? I think it might be. It's a 1003 something. Well, yeah, so it's an MPC 1003. Does it say NEC? Oh, so it's a, should be, oh, it's like it's a UPC. C2 or something on the end of it. That says C, so it's a UPC NEC chip, very corroded looking. Looks like a couple of screws, we can get that board loose. So that does the servo control once you, I guess, set it with the pitch controls or whatever. This thing should basically lock the motor in. It's got 3 wires on the motor. That was the main reason I looked it up, because I thought, what on earth has it got 3 wires on the motor for? Normal turntable DC motor should just have 2 like a cassette player. And it turns out we've got blue, I think is that the positive? No, that's the negative maybe. Red is the positive, I think. Yeah, that comes out of the bridge rectifier. The blue is controlled by that little chip. So it controls the negative side of the motor, and there should be a white wire here, which is like a tacho of some sort of speed sensor that comes back to the chip. So I guess if we've lost that signal, maybe there's an issue. There could be something wrong in the motor. So there's a fair chance the motor's alright, though it may be due for a bit of a service. I'm guessing it's more likely something in the electronics. Maybe these old little Matsushita caps as well. They look like their ones. Yeah, they got the symbol, little blue ones. They sometimes fail. Could be something on the other power board. Could be the motor. But supposedly this puts out some sort of pulse train, which is squared up in the chip. One of the Technics manuals, I think SL23 or something, actually tells you how this operates basically, but basically there's some sort of pulses come out, and I think it's either squared up outside the chip or in the chip, and that uses it as a pulse reference, and you get a little servo circuit going, which basically varies the voltage to this motor. If the pulses are too fast, it slows it down and reduces the voltage. If they're too slow, then it speeds it up by increasing the voltage, type of thing. So it's possible the motor's iffy. I haven't even spun the thing yet to see what it feels like, which is always the first thing you normally do, is just get a feel of, yeah, smooth as, doesn't spin on a lot, but not noisy. He may well have lubricated this as well already, but looks like someone's been in there and had to play with the motor. But I always like to know what's going on. I think he put, yeah, a screw in there to hold the, or did we not bother in the end? Maybe he didn't bother in the end, but I found a screw inside it, which is probably the platter screw, I'm guessing. I think we didn't bother in the end. Yeah, that's the one, I think. So that for some reason was inside the unit. I guess someone loosened it off and left it somewhere and it dropped in there. But yeah, it should be a fairly straightforward sort of circuit. I don't know if this one needs the platter on it to regulate itself, or whether it'll operate okay without the platter. I guess we could actually fire it up and see if it keeps any sort of speed without the weight on it. That might be the first test of this thing. As it's off, 45. I guess we're not going to get any sort of speed indication because it's making a little bit of noise. So that motor may well need a bit of a lubrication. Be surprised if it doesn't need something by now. But yeah, whether someone's actually tried to fix that motor or not, I don't know. But yeah, we're going to have to put the platter on to find out. Yeah, how do you get the belt on this one is going to be the interesting issue. I guess we start by trying to get it off over here somewhere. I might use my little tool, little hook. See if I can hook that carefully. It's a sort of round belt in this one, not a flat one. Nice heavy platter on it. You're going to go in there. Oh, there it goes. It's not sliding in the easiest, that's for sure. Oh, I've lost my belt. Well, that didn't work. Oh yeah, that's tighter than it should be, I would think. As long as it spins once it's in there, I guess, but I could do a bit more oil on it maybe. Does not want to, oh there it goes, once it goes, it goes. I think we're on, yeah, it's quite reluctant to go down really. Oh, it's probably got air build up in it is the other problem. How do we, can we release the air out of it anywhere? No, it's all sealed up, so that's not a great design. But I reckon that's what's going on. I guess we should be able to get it going like that anyway. It certainly rings nicely. See if it will get going. It's a bit reluctant. Certainly a mile out at the moment. Which one's which? Oh, it's actually got a marking here of which band's which. 3360 hertz. I see, and then 3350 hertz. I don't see 4 rings though. So we should be on 3350. One of them's reasonably still. Oh yeah, that's changing with the pitch, I think. That's actually quite stable, though I can't see it very well. Down to 45. That's the top ones. That doesn't look at all stable. .45 pitch is the highest one. It's getting faster, I think. Yeah, 45 doesn't seem to want to settle down. 33. Second one up. It's going very fast at the moment. I think we've hit an end. But it was kind of locked in before. That's a mile out. Doesn't seem to be much speed control there, that's for sure. Oh, is that one? Oh, we've hit an end where it's sort of slowing down. That makes it go fast, so maybe it needs a little bit more. And 45 is the top one. Miles out. Yeah, and it's slowing down a little bit. So that's the negative direction of the pitch. I think that might have hit the bottom end. Yeah, so one's at the top end, one's at the bottom end, and we're not quite getting it. It's not that far off. Well, look at one needs. I think the 33 needs to be a bit quicker, and the 45 a little bit slower. So I guess what I need to do is look at this little circuit. Where did I put my screwdriver? And I guess measure and see if we're actually. I guess firstly got a signal coming out of the motor. Yeah, you've got 33 and 45 sitting there. At least those pots look pretty good. That chip does not look the best. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it, so I guess in a way I need to... should be able to check the voltage going into this motor. I guess firstly that we've got a steady 12 volts. Secondly that the IC is doing something to alter the speed, at least when we adjust the pitch controls. Actually those pots on this angle don't look as clean as they do on the other angle, so the pots aren't they are pretty corroded. The chip is very corroded or tarnished. Soldering all looks pretty good from what I can see. I mean, it probably would pay to check all those capacitors. Probably have to find a way to mount this thing up so that there's no risk of it tipping over. Might have to have the multimeter under it for now. Oh, that's too thick. Maybe a cassette case will do. Yeah, that'll do. Bit dodgy, but I'll be extra careful. Might as well check the condition of these little electrode caps just out of interest. If I can actually connect to them, because that one's got a lead going through a bit of green spaghetti over the boards, and someone didn't plan this board too well by the look of it. Where is that one? Things are mounted in some weird... everything's on weird angles and stuff, so that's a bit odd. That's definitely a cap. They're actually measuring quite low, so chances are going to be good. But I think every one of them's on a weird diagonal sort of mounting. What on earth has someone done? Yeah, very weird board layout. But I think these are made in Scotland or somewhere, so probably don't do things the way everyone else does. And that one is is, and it just makes life very difficult trying to work out where the pins of these things are. They all seem absolutely fine. I guess the next thing to check is these trim pots. They're probably more likely to be faulty than anything, but they may well be fine. $12K, $12K. That's measuring like it's right down one end. Oh no, that's because the two that's why they measure like that, because two of the pins are joined together. That makes sense then. And that one's set to about 9K. What are they? I can't. Oh, one at 20K I think, and I think the other one's, what was that, 2K? It can't be 2K, that's measuring 12K. Are they 203s? Yeah, I think they're 20K, both 20Ks, 203 written on them. I mean, none of these resistors are likely to be faulty. Chip could be iffy. Or the motor itself. And what has it got, some weird, I'm not sure what this actually is. That an inductor in there? I guess it looks like a couple of windings. One goes into the motor, or both of them are joined. One comes, there should be some sort of connection from, I guess, the red wire to the white wire. If I'm reading that correctly, it doesn't really say whether they're joined or not, but I assume they would be. So all of them should be joined in some way. These, yeah, 33 ohms there, 56 ohms across the whole motor, or not. 22 ohms there, 33 to that one, and 56 to the negative. Well, we don't know what that actually goes into. Something in the motor winding, so that doesn't, but at least they're all connected. So I guess that's the other thing, is we should check if there's 12 volts going into this thing, if it does actually say 12 volts. Strangely the motor doesn't seem to want to run. So that should be on the positive of the motor. I assume that big pad there is probably ground. 12.3 volts. And to ground, what have we got? We've got some sort of, 12 volts. So that's currently not in switched on mode. And there must be something like that in there. So what switch have I pressed or not pressed? Oh, don't have any, either speed button press. That was what it was. That's like 5 volts. So it's not, certainly not putting 12 volts across the motor. That's, oh, it's dropped down too, the 12 volts with a load on it. Doesn't look the most stable either. Could be my connections. That's certainly varying around. Whether that's considered a lot or not, I'm not sure. That should be delivering some sort of pulses, I think. I guess that's the other thing to have a look at with the oscilloscope and see if it is pulses. It looks a lot more like it's like a proportional voltage or something, but I guess if that's an inductor, don't know, I mean that circuit's probably not the most accurate representation of what's actually going on in there. Can I just connect to, what's that? Oh, it's the heatsink of the chip. It's also connected to that resistor there by the look of it. Possibly I can hook onto that. And the white wire, I think is that end one. Oh, yeah, there's something there. It's more like a sine wave. A very dodgy looking one like that, I think. Take my hand off there might help. No, it's going up and down all over the place. and spiky. It's got like a wave of amplitude change sort of flowing through it, which is strange. I wouldn't have thought it should be doing that. We've got a lot of crap on that lead there too. Not sure what this chip does to it, but that's feeding some sort of signal. Let's have a look at our DC, which does have a bit of rubbish on it too, but I think it's fairly stable. Chip's not running hot or anything, or even warm. I guess that's one of the questions, is what happens when the pot rotates, or we change the what the pot is feeding in. Well, that's definitely varying something, I think. The waveform seems to change a bit under the pitch control. I think DC might be more useful to look at. .9, 10, 10.2. Let's turn that right down the bottom. Now 6.3, 10.1. Let's go right to the other end of that pitch control. Oh, close enough. 10.0, 5.2, so it's not doing an awful lot. Yeah, I guess another thing I could do is I wonder what happens if we disconnect the motor speed regulation tacho thing. I guess the other thing is you could connect the motor directly to ground. I think the white wire was the tacho, wasn't it? Yeah. I wonder how far out it gets speed-wise. If that's disconnected, it'd be interesting to see what sort of signals there without the chip involved. Sounds a lot faster to me. A lot of ripple there. Still a lot of ripple there. And an awful noisy signal coming out of that motor. I wonder what voltage we're getting there too. What would be the other interesting thing to have a look at. So it sounds like that circuit's definitely doing something. It's going up and down the speed a bit, I think. 9.4, nothing. 6.8. Oh yeah, so we've gone back to ground. So I guess we've got the full 9 volts across it. That's actually gone down a bit. It says varying a bit. Yep, so it goes up to sort of full motor speed. So we've got no speed regulation without that, so we know that circuit's probably working basically. Even if not properly, it's at least trying to control the speed. So I think our motor's putting a decent signal back into that chip. The chip's obviously responding to it. So the fact the chip is operating is a good sign. Now there are these pots, I think I did measure them and they seem to measure steady. There is a bit of something weird under there. What is underneath that pot? Probably just a bit of wood or something. Yeah, it's got something under there. Yeah, bits of wood, I think. Certainly could be worth giving those a squirt. So one's pointing just slightly off the middle. That one to about that green capacitor thing. I wonder if I should just resolder that chip while I'm in here just to make sure none of those pins are tarnished and weird. down through the solder. Seems to take to it nicely. Maybe we need to tweak those pots a bit. Not easy to do. Which one's which is the next problem. That's 4. And that's 33. Definitely changes the speed. And that seems to settle there somewhere. Okay, that seems pretty good. 33, let's move it away again towards the middle somewhere. Let's see if we can at least get the thing to lock. Let's try it with an actual cardboard one. Well, we're on the 60 Hz side, and we want the other side. This isn't America. Yeah, 45 actually looks right there. No, it's 78, I'm looking at the wrong one. 33 does look solid. That's not moving. Gotta focus on it. That's starting to rotate clockwise. Okay, now I can't focus on it, it's gone weird. And there we go, backwards. Doesn't have enough bend in this bloody thing. My eyes are focusing on the cardboard rather than the pattern. Yeah, that seems to lock in for quite a good area of stillness. Try and defocus my eyes a bit. Yeah, that's starting to rotate. Still. It's starting to go backwards. That's even with that horrible rubbishy looking signal on that chip. Don't know if the camera picks that up very well. It probably won't. But that outer ring seems to be steady. Yeah, I didn't realise this thing had got a bit bent up. That really doesn't help, because your eye catches focuses on the actual cardboard instead of sort of defocusing onto the stroboscopic pattern. Yeah, it's still a bit really annoying, that. So I think that was one I pinched off some old record player. Must have been an old dual one by the look of it. And it probably could do with a clean too. I haven't used it in years, but I got it from somewhere off some old bit of gear or something, and it's very rare I've actually ever used it. But yeah, now that we're on the second middle one, and it's rock steady at the moment. Yeah, and the one in the inbuilt unit is steady. Very hard to see, but it is there. Oh, that's a bit better if you actually block the light in here. That is steady as. Yeah, the other one's steady. So it must be that motor could probably do with the service as well, but I haven't really done anything to this and it seems to be working at the moment. Okay, I might have a quick look at the motor. Looks like you can just get to the 3 screws rather than having to take the whole suspended mount here off. We can probably just unscrew the motor. Looks like someone's already had this to bits at some stage. It's a shake-proof washer, yes. Oh, it's in pieces, that doesn't help. I think I need a magnetic screwdriver for that. Yeah, that one's broken. I think I better put a new one in there. Should have some second-hand ones. Yeah, God, it's not very tight, the motor. Someone hasn't screwed it up properly. That one's a little tighter, but there, that one of the screws is loose basically. So maybe someone gave this a quick lubrication or something and said that's it, it's fixed. I could do with a bit of dust brushing out of there too, I think, while I'm at it. Okay, I've got a motor floating around now. Not the easiest thing to work on and see at the same time. So I've got one Phillips head on one side, it's also a flat head. Who knows what sort of brushes we're going to have to set up in this thing and whether we mess them up by taking this off. It's got a little bit stuck in there. Don't think they should come undone, it's probably just going to get into the rubber mounts or whatever. So we'll have a quick look at this thing and see what on earth. We may be able to see our electronics or our pickup anyway, it's probably not really electronic. What have we got here? Some sort of... So that's the white wire, goes to something labelled G. But some sort of little capacitor there, maybe that's probably just across the power, is it? Yeah, from negative to positive terminal I'd say. And we're not really seeing much because we've got another motor inside the motor case. Did that just come out or what's the story here? Oh yeah, if you push hard enough, we've got another rubber bit just stuck in there. Probably would need to lubricate this thing a bit. Yeah, quite a bit of dust in there, so if someone's looked at this they haven't, I mean, mind you, it could have been a while ago now. And it's just been put away and that's what's happened, and they've moved house and stuff, so maybe that's where we've got a bit of dust from. Either the G terminal just comes out of the motor itself. A little bit of play, but that's probably normal. As in out. Side to side feels nice and solid. I am very tempted to give it a service. I've got a couple of screws, 3 screws there. And I guess this can only go back in one particular way. If in doubt, always mark things. I'll just maybe put a black mark across everything. And then solder the fuck of that off. One terminal there. Next to the red wire. One where that little capacitor goes on the other side. I think that was the black wire. That's pretty good, I think. And then one where that says G, where the little white wire comes in. That's come off already. That's one good thing about having some wires stretched a little bit, I guess. Although, if we're to take it apart, we're going to have to take the pulley off most likely. I'm not sure how that's actually stuck on. Is it just press fit? It would be very nice. Or even if we can just get the end off, I guess. Problem is how the brush is set up in this thing is the fun part. And then we've got something attached to the front with 3 little tabs. I don't see any way you can really get the brushes, if they're a particular type, to go back onto this. Hopefully they're the ones that press on flat, but there's no guarantees with these things. But in theory we should be able to get the back of the motor off and lube it. And I'll probably regret doing this. It's loose. A little bit more of a mark there, just I like to always make sure everything goes back where it should. Even though it doesn't always matter if it does. Does this just pull out? It seems to be coming. Let's just hope to hell we can get it back together easily. Oh no, it is the brushes that press inwards and go over that thing, so how the hell do you get them apart? As someone said, you may have to push the whole thing back in there, but at least we can lubricate that, take the motor out from the front, assemble it. I think they might be onto something there, and it might be a good chance to clean out this front bit. So we've just got to look at those two coils, or what's picking up the rotation of the motor. So this bit's fixed, isn't it? So it's picking up, you've got a fixed magnet. Oh, is it picking up these little metal tabs sticking off the back of the motor here? Maybe that's what we're... It's got the magnet. Yeah, it is. It's right over that little row of 1, 2, 3, 6 by look at little metal bits sticking out. So that's what's going into those coils. And that's what's making that sort of, what you think would be more like a sine wave, but it's a triangular wave. Now the big question is, how do we prise this thing off? There's no screws in it. So I guess I'm going to have to try and prise it upwards and hope it comes off. Probably some glue or something. Oh, that is tight. Not the ideal way to do it, but hey, it's going. Just got to be super careful, and usually do it on a few different sides and stuff. I should have really measured that gap a bit better, but you can sort of see where it is anyway. It's about 2 millimeters or something. That's going to shoot it off across the room probably. I think that may have been glued at some stage from the look of it. It's got something under there, so maybe a bit of Loctite or something. Yeah, a bit of an odd one. Now, how do I get it any further is the next question. That's it. Okay, yeah, it's got something. I reckon that was like arrowdite or something. Now, can I get this to just slide out is the next question. It doesn't want to, but it's got probably stuff on it. Or is that what these other tabs are? What would be in there that would hold anything? It should just push out, you would think. We've got 3 metal tabs here. I wonder what on earth they do, if anything. I'm going to have to bend them up and see if it allows anything to come out any easier. It already seems to be dropping in, whatever it is. Yeah, it definitely is, so that's something. Let's straighten them right up. So I think they have to come out there. I mean, the magnets are now just pulling on it. Ah, so what have we got here? Some sort of weird setup. So it goes on the other side of some little copper thing by the look of it that sits on a little, well, that's the bushing, so the bushing comes with this. That is surprisingly tight. Oh, that's because there's gluey stuff on there, I guess. That's going to be fun to try and get that all back into place where it should go. Yeah, definitely could do with some lubrication, I think. Well, that should all sit further down, I guess. It's moved upwards. Yeah, so you need to spread the brushes, sit this in, and then slide the whole assembly in together by the look of it. Would be kind of nice if we could get that pushing right off in a way, but though the fact this wouldn't come means that copper bit must have been on the other side of this thing, so I probably do have to get the bushing off. I'm just turning it a bit harder. We'll get that off and put the copper bit. It would suggest that there's actually a little bit of copper. Interestingly, some of the that's the worry, a bit of windings on the motor actually lost their green. Might need to put some sort of varnish or something on there just in case anything can short out there. But what we'll do first is remove those and clean that. There's quite a bit of blackish looking stuff on there. Definitely some dried up oil or something. If I'm going to mess around with this thing, might as well pull it to bits and do it properly, I think, in case there is any issue with this. And yeah, I don't like the look of that wiring. I might even smear a little bit of silicone or something on it. Trying to think what I can use. I haven't got any nail varnish handy. Even a bit of this glass and tile paint or something. That's the sort of thing we want, if it's still any good. Oh yeah. It's even the right colour. That should be a pretty solid paint, that glass and tile stuff. I don't know how long it takes to dry is the only problem, but I might have to even let that dry and put it together later. Probably need to smear it out a bit more because it's actually making a bit of a lump there. We don't need it to be thick, we just need it to insulate it basically. And if I go messing around with this stuff, it's probably going to make a mess of it, so I think I'll have to let that dry overnight. And yeah, then we'll put this thing back together. Lubricating, I can give that a clean too while I'm at it because that doesn't look the best. You're going to tip over, aren't you? Where can I set this thing where it won't feel like I can put it in the magnet assembly? That would be the go. Yeah, perfect. Just give this a clean as well because it's got some black stuff on it. I'll see how well it holds its speed then. But at least I know this is lubricated up nicely then. Might even put that back on the shaft just so I know where it is at. Yeah, that feels nice and free on all parts of the shaft now. And I guess I can already put a dole of oil in that bit because that's going to be one of the important bits to oil up. Might even get a little bit on a tiny screwdriver. And put a tiny bit down in there. Get it right up onto the front face, just a very light coating. Okay, well that should hopefully have dried. That can still see through it a little bit, but at least it's got some sort of insulation on that wire. And where did I get to? I put some lubrication on the other end, on the brush's end. I just got to put a little bit of oil on here. Although I've got to put those other pieces on first, haven't I? The metal followed by the copper, the copper which never wants to sit on top of the metal like it should. So yeah, I think that's right. Actually I must go that way with the bit that's bowed out. Yeah, because that sits into the other bit, yeah, so it sits between those two. I must just spring it up into there or something. Oh, I guess I need to get some oil on that shaft first, and then we've got that little, I guess it butts onto that little plastic washer thing in there, a little black one. Tiny bit of oil in there. Or do we put the bearing down there first? Oh god. Maybe that's the key. To lock the bearing, well that washer can stay on there. Do we lock the bearing? Is that the idea, to lock the bearing to the motor case? Maybe that was the idea of what they were doing. Yeah, that goes that way. And of course everything's going to stick to the damn magnets. Oh, at least my pliers are nicely magnetised now. I guess that's something. But the problem is, as soon as I get in there, I'm going to bump that copper thing. So I think the idea is we get that in there. Except I can't bend these over now. Maybe I just bend them just so they can't, at least can't slip out, and then we'll worry about getting them tight afterwards. Well, at least I know everything's in place. So I think we're going to have something to push this up. Got a rotten little bearing. Completely up. Like something around that, or that we can shove up in there. And then you need to basically bang these tabs over. I found a piece of dowel that's about the right diameter, so that's probably the perfect thing because it's wood and it's soft. Can I just bend them in the slot there a bit? That's probably a start. Bend them outwards. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's definitely what we need for a starter. And then I've got some pin drivers. Okay, I've got a pin driver here. I just bought a set of these to fix, or knock a pin out on a CV joint on my old ute because it broke a CV. Well, I helped it break a CV. Hopefully we can use one of those. Just making sure that copper bit stays where it should, to bash these back on nice and tight. It seems to be working. Still in place. I'm pretty sure that's how that's meant to work. Better hope so, I guess. Oh, well, I knew as soon as I got a set of these that they would actually come in handy for something else. I didn't think it'd be that quick, but is that a little out there? Looks a little bendy, but I think that's alright. It's just pulling in nice and tight. I think it's so that that is tight. It pushes on the copper bit, which helps hold the bushing in place tightly. Probably just wants in there, just tap that to try and make sure that metal's fairly flat, and I guess that should sort of self-center. I think that's pretty good. Okay, so I need to try and spread these apart. If I can get the washer under one side, yeah, that worked, I think. Very hard to see a thing in there. Yeah, that's got the brushes pretty right. Now the big problem is what's going to happen when this hits the magnet. So we're going to have to come up with a way of slowing that down. I have to put my finger over the hole or something, I think. And I think the key here, where has my mark gone? Where's the other mark gone? Is to put a finger over the other end of that. But of course that little bearing slides around all over the place, and try and stop this from, that's it, shooting in. Oh man, it's really pulling. That should get it. So you just got to stop that, those magnets pulling the commutator thing in quickly and pulling it faster than what the brushes are going. Well, it spins better than it did before, I think, because nice and smooth. And that was the back bit of plastic, I think. All rubbery stuff. Now, I did mark the no, I didn't mark the outside of this. That'd be right. Well, I guess the first thing we've got to do is solder it back onto the board. That can only go one way, I would think. There, there and there. I guess we should actually probably fire it up and make sure it still runs. Boards are going to lift. Oh, great job, didn't stick to it at all. Okay, yeah, I might just flick the power on. There we go. You can barely even tell it's running. But it is definitely going. I better clean the oil off that too, I guess. I've got to put the shaft back on, but yeah, that's nice and smooth. Better than you could wish for on something like this. Now, I can see the marks where that went. Which hole had the wire coming out of it is the next question, I guess. This only goes with that metal tab sticking out there. Oh, there's the wire, comes out there. And it's got that funny little tab there for some reason. Well, that's not right either, because where's my little screw hole there? So that's, what? Oh, that's the one that goes in there. There, the flat ones go there. Oh, yeah, screw hole there. But that must be the wires out there. Had it wrong for a minute. So if the wires come out there, this motor must go about like that. It's only held in by the rubber, so other than that it doesn't really matter, I don't think. Although maybe I should have stuck the rubber over it first. I assume the split is for the wires as well. Only fiddly little so-and-so. And that should just press in there basically. Now I had that the right way around, now I've lost it there. Yep, screw hole lines up. That doesn't want to go in, of course. It's quite a tight fit. But it should be with all that rubber stuff compressed in there, I guess. Let's just make sure. No, of course that end hasn't gone in the hole. It was a tight fit, but it shouldn't have been quite that tight. Yeah, rubber should be good. All turns nicely, and put the screw back in, and hopefully that's, well, besides putting the spindle back on. I might even not glue that on just yet, but I'll clean any oil off first. So I want any oil removed from that part of it. And that had about a 2mm gap. I'll see how hard that actually is. Now it goes on nice and loose, so it was obviously glued right to there. It actually feels like it stops. Yeah, it's actually got to stop it, so you can't really get the height of that wrong. But we can glue that on afterwards. I might just put the motor back in place. I think we needed a new washer or something for that too. Go away, cassette case. And which way should the wires really go? They're out there somewhere. Wires slightly angled towards the circuit board. That's got a good washer. This is going to be fiddly to get in because you can barely get your hand in there to start it, and they're flathead screws just to be really annoying. Don't know why people are using flatheads. Once Phillips were invented, they should have all been abandoned. Now where did that screwdriver go? Yeah, once you've got one in, it's easy. I can do it on the flat then. Maybe. Maybe it might not be easier on the flat, I don't know. That's a screw. Now one of these washers out, one's snapped in half, so I won't put that one back in. And the second one in, and this can actually be tightened up properly. Oh, actually I better get the last one in because you're actually just going to have to rotate slightly to get that in, I think. Yeah, and we need a little washer. So we want tiny, that one right there will be close enough, I think. Probably a little bit bigger than the original, but will it fit in there? If it does, that's going to be the one. Not sure you even really need them on every screw, but I guess it doesn't matter if that's what they had. Of course I left it for the hardest one. Oh, don't drop. This is where three hands are very handy. It's got it, I think. Need a slightly bigger driver to finish it, I think, because they should be nice and tight. That one's too big. That's the one. That's, oh, that didn't feel too good. God, there was that much extra turn in that screw. That felt tight before. I guess the tension from the washer. God, I thought I actually broke it. Yeah, that one's the same. So a tighter screwdriver makes a big difference. Probably should be pressing up a bit from below on this, but yeah, that one's actually pretty tight. Get rid of those damn washers. Probably best to hold it from the back of the motor just to do some final tightening. Okay, it's nice and tight. Everything else is in place. Okay, well, fire it up and see if we can get it to lock on speed again. What are we on? 33, which is, yeah, the second one, I think. Yep, looking good. Slight little movement, but slightly going one way. That's locked. That also is ever so slightly creeping over time, but for most people that would be considered locked. And I'm going to try and defocus. Which one are we on? The outer one. 33, yep. Pretty rock steady. Middle one, yeah, rock steady. This thing actually seems to be working alright. Although, didn't really do much other than clean some pots and adjust it. So it's more in the range. I'm much happier now that motor's been serviced too, because if there's any issues in that motor, I don't think they'd be there anymore. Okay, I'll have another look at these signals. They certainly seem more triangular than I would have expected, but maybe that's just how this thing is. I guess I better give you guys a look at it as well, since I'm the only one who's even seen them. But I was just interested whether that would show anything. Is that going? I can't even hear the motor turn anymore. That's how much quieter it is now. Yeah, we've got our 200 odd on the B plus. I guess I should put this oscilloscope back to the original settings. The same sort of wave shape with a little bit cut out of it. It's a little bit different to before maybe, but pretty much the same thing. So this is on 0.2 volts of division. That's the red lead, the B plus out of the power supply, so that's just a ripple on the power supply basically. That's the blue wire, so that's where that's the other side of the motor, the negative side of the motor with the chip controlling it, so it looks pretty crazy. Some sort of waviness going through that. And that's the output of the white wire, which I thought that actually had more signal on it before. I could have sworn that was bigger than that, because that's not much different to that one. So interestingly, that signal may have gone down a bit, but that's coming out of the little sensors in the motor. So I guess it's probably the power supply ripple. It doesn't really look any different to the ripple going in, but it's got some sort of AC superimposed on it, I guess. And that's what the chip is feeding back to the motor, strangely. Which is what, 0.2? Well, you know, 5 divisions, which is half of that screen, is a volt, and it's going pretty much from top to bottom. I don't know what it looks like if we spread that out a bit more. Of course, it's just not locked into it real well. But that's what's coming out of the chip to the negative side of the motor by the look of it. Not quite what I expected. And that's the power supply itself. You can reduce that a bit with a filter cap across there, but it doesn't seem to affect any of this. But anyway, that's what we get. And that motor is so quiet you can't tell it's running anymore, which is a good sign. I think we're safe to glue that pulley on, so I might just put a small amount of Ariston. It is quite a tight fit, but I'll just put a very small amount. I'll just mix up a tiny little spot of the 5-minute Ariston. And poor old Gabby gets glue on him as well. And then you can make a tiny amount of Ariston the way they design these things. Oh, that's it. I'll just apply a little smear to it. That won't even be too much, but anyway, it'll be enough to... You can break it again if you need to, but hopefully after this no one will need to pull that apart again in a long time. push too much down the shaft. That's why I don't want to put much on, because you'll end up with a ball of it at the bottom that'll glue the shaft of the motor if you're not careful. That is super smooth. That's impressively how smooth. So these must have been a pretty good motor. That's probably why they got that extra bearing bit and stuff on the end with the plate holding it on. They certainly went a bit further than usual, but that's definitely better than it was. Well, I gave this thing a run for a couple of weeks and hasn't missed a beat. You do have to slightly adjust the speed when you first turn it on, and once it's set, it seems to run absolutely fine. We'll try it again. It hasn't been used for probably 4 days or something now. And I did find another issue with this. I played this Pat Benatar Love is a Battlefield extended vinyl in it and thought it actually sounded surprisingly better than usual. So when I first tried it, thought, God, it really is a good turntable. Some of the synth parts sounded better than usual. But I was soon disappointed when I tried a Def Leppard 12-inch single in there. Didn't sound as good, just on whatever the first song was, as what you'd expect off CD or even a file off the computer. And then I played, I think it's, Ride Into the Sun, one of their tracks, and when I got to one of the guitar solo bits, it just wasn't there. So I thought, this thing's actually got a phase issue. And it turned out that someone else had, at a different hi-fi store, had put some supposedly higher quality wiring through this tone arm up to the cartridge. So it turns out this cartridge is actually an Audifon OM Pro. I think it's like a DJ type one. But definitely sounding out of phase on the Def Leppard. Even the like Armageddon or one of those sort of tracks didn't sound as good, but I didn't notice anything out of phase. But like I say, a particular guitar part in this other song, it was basically cancelling itself out. So I had to look up online to see what the actual wiring for these things were, because when I was measuring it with a multimeter, it's actually diagonal. Normally these things, I think, have a coil from 2 pins on one side, or say from the upper pin on one side to the upper pin on the other side, horizontally across. This one's diagonal, but it is actually set up that way. And they are actually, the colours are on the back, other than for the green wire, which doesn't have anything on it, but you've got your blue, red and white are all marked, so you can't really stuff it up. It turns out, because he was also complaining about this humming a lot, he actually added his own earth wire, because the tone arm's actually on a piece of wood in this thing, and of course it's, you know, isolated somewhat by a spring, so not the best earthing point anyway. But it turns out that green pin on the stylus is actually the earth. You can see a little piece of metal, basically, I guess, going to the metal case of the stylus. So that was actually going to one, I think, the right channel or something as the signal line, while the other side of the stylus was going as to the earth. So I think that's what would have been causing his hum issues as well. But definitely out of phase. I sort of talked to him and said, oh, you hooked your stylus up the wrong way. He's like, no, I took it to a hi-fi store, a well-known hi-fi store, and they did it. But they'd actually hooked one channel up out of phase, which is ridiculous, really. I mean, especially when they're all labelled. I do have to fix up the blue wires now, hanging down a bit low. There's a risk I'll probably break the solder joint on it, because they're barely soldered on. I think one of the other ones came off when I was fiddling around with it. I'll see if I can get that to hide up. Yeah, that's a bit better. It's not hanging down towards the record. So it's all in phase now. They also put on some nice RCA sockets on the back, which is one good thing they did. And I don't know, the wiring looks like standard wire to me, but it's supposed to be some higher quality stuff, you know, all this audio full sort of stuff you can get. But it does sound excellent, this turntable. Really nice unit. So we'll fire it up for the first time in a few days. And that's just, I found the screw inside. I think that was in the video before. That's just a screw for the locking the bladder in place there. Pretty close to correct speed, but just ever so slightly out. Probably not even worth worrying about. I actually turn it the way that the little bit on the neon light's moving. Yeah, that's locked it in, I think. Or maybe just slightly out. But yeah, surprisingly on this record it actually sounded slightly better in some of the synth parts out of phase than it does with the correct phasing. So now it just sounds like it normally did. But yeah, excellent sounding turntable. Let's go around to 33. Again, just slightly too fast. Just probably the temperature changes are enough. It's been hot weather sometimes when I use it, cold weather. So even that's probably enough to set it off a little bit at the beginning. But yeah, basically this thing can go back to the guy. It all seems to be running fine. I've given it a good long run. I've only got one 33 speed record, which is a Madonna 12-inch, so I'm absolutely sick of listening to Like a Prayer. But that's the only thing I had in 33 on vinyl basically, so I had to use that over and over a few times. And went through the rest of my record collection and gave it a good play. Not that I have much of one. And yeah, it's just been running beautifully. Absolutely nice sounding unit. So certainly a quality sort of deck. Probably that newer cartridge on it doesn't hurt. Doubt that wiring makes any real difference, but maybe. But there's no humming on this amp at the moment, so I think that will have cured his earth issue. The speed issue seems to be fine now that I've set it to the middle, got over those few little things. Motor's completely quiet. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is about the motor. I don't think I actually had to pull that front bearing part out of that. I think that was just the glue, because I took the actual pulley off it, and when it wouldn't come out I wasn't going to force anything, but in hindsight if I just scraped the glue off that shaft it probably would have slipped straight through that bearing and could have left it in there and lubricated it from inside the motor. So that's one thing I did that wasn't necessary to do, I'd say. Still good to pull the motor apart and lube those two bearings in it, or bushers, but not necessary to actually undo those clips that hold it on and then bend them back. So that bit wasn't necessary at all, which I know in hindsight now. So that would have saved a little bit of time. But yeah, this thing's running really well, so I think we'll give it back to the guy now and he can give it a run, and I'll do a follow-up video if there are any issues. But this has just been locked in, like I say, just probably the temperature variance and stuff. It's just slightly out when you first start it, and as soon as you adjust it a bit it locks in and you can play it for hours and not a problem, no speed change at all. So that's all I have on this one for now, so thanks for watching.